All right, guys, we know the Browns have a head coach. They are yet to make a hire for the defensive coordinator position, but we do know the Browns have at least requested interviews and conducted most of them with 7 candidates thus far. They've interviewed 2 internal candidates, that being Jason Tarver, their current linebackers coach, and Ephraim Banda, the current safeties coach. They've requested 5 external interviews. Aubrey Pleasant, the Rams passing game coordinator. Jonathan Cooley, local kid, went to John Carroll, coach at John Carroll in Akron. He's currently Carolina's defensive pass game coordinator. Corey Unlin, who Albert Breer said this morning is the favorite for the job. He's Houston's defensive pass game coordinator. Charlie Bolin was the Giants' interim defensive coordinator and their outside linebackers coach. And Mike Ruttenberg is Atlanta's defensive pass game coordinator. Zach, I'm not sure how much you know about each of these guys, but the report out of Albert Breer this morning was
why is he the favorite?
Inside track. Yeah, any insight on why?
Yeah, I actually know Corey fairly well. Fairly well. He worked here a million years ago in the Romeo administration. He was very young then. Yeah. And then when Mel Tucker got promoted to defensive coordinator, Corey got his first position coach's job. He has a direct tie to Todd Monken. They worked together for a year or two in Jacksonville. Corey's been around. He's
not a spring young guy.
Yeah, his year as DC in Detroit did not go well. That's the year Matt Patricia got fired in November. Everything was a disaster. Right. They were the bottom there. So just the connection, and I think his experience, especially the last 3 in Houston, where they've built probably the second best defense in the league. Yeah. Stands out there. So that's why he's probably, considered the favorite. Ephraim Banda has been a fast riser. Jim Schwartz kind of identified him and brought him in. He's helped Grant Delpit get to the next step. He knows the scheme. He's been there. Tarver is the only guy on the current staff who's been an NFL defensive coordinator. So, it's kind of like the head coaching process. Like, you use this to go out and meet these guys and talk with them. You don't know when you'll be interviewing them again or how it's all going to fit. Yeah. Corey Unlin, even if he is your pick, like, he's got a good gig in Houston. He doesn't necessarily need to leave that. And people, I don't know. We're never going to get the full Jim Schwartz story. Yeah. Right? But, there's reasons for guys to be hesitant about leaving good jobs. Aubrey Pleasant's the other one that sticks out. The Browns and lots of teams did all sorts of work on the Rams staff. Chris Shula got interviews. Nate Shieldhouse obviously got interviews. Pleasant's been there. Coached in big games. Coached really good players.
Yeah. And I think a lot of fans look at the Browns DC job as like, well, they got so much talent. It's a great job. But you really can only go down. I agree. If the defense goes backwards at all, you're getting the blame. If the defense is good, unless it's the greatest defense we've ever seen, you're not going to get any credit. They're going to be like, well, it's Jim Schwartz.
I credit Monken and the Browns to this for people all like, there's a lot of other good defensive coordinators out there. This scheme's been – that's all right. But, Jim Schwartz was the head coach of the defense. Yep. Jim Schwartz was the architect of this defense. Yeah. And when you're a coordinator, you coach your guys, your standards, your expectations, your scheme, your communication. And when you're coming into the room with this personalities, and there's a lot of them, including the guy who's most important. Yes. He's his own thing now.
And he liked Schwartz.
I'm just telling you right now that these guys love Jim Schwartz. And like you just said, a lot of great things. Yeah. The biggest thing I took away from that is that they believe in everything that guy said. And they play to a certain identity that guy play. And this guy's going to come in there with a different set of rules and different set of terminology and a different set of everything else. And the second there's any friction, that's when the cancer starts to develop, because then they start thinking about what Jim would do and how Jim would handle this. And well, Jim would have done this.
And just let me say a big picture thought here. This gets lost for multiple reasons. They were meaningless games. But the Browns won the last 2 games of the year. And not because the offense helped one bit, right? So everybody knew Stefanski was getting fired. Everybody knew the season was over. Everybody knew we're headed to an uncertain future on multiple levels. In this defense, Jim Schwartz's defense came out and played their butts off and won 2 division games and sent these guys out a certain way. Like, they were dialed in to Jim Schwartz. That doesn't mean that the new guy can't come in and do that, but everything Dustin said about the dynamics of this is 100% fact.
And so wouldn't it make sense, wouldn't the 2 guys who were here have a better chance of connecting with the players?
They have the same thing, though. It's a good thought, and I think it's a correct one. But they have the same thing, though, because they're not Jim.
No, but they can still be sort of. I don't even know the best way to say it. I mean, there are parts of that coach who's been under Jim that they would have the trust, I think, of the players, and more so initially as opposed to bringing an outsider
the communication piece,
right? Yeah, the terminology is a big deal.
Wouldn't there be some similarity? Like, they've coached under Jim Schwartz. There'd be probably some things that like a new guy would want to do something and be like, what the hell is he doing?
Well, there's a reason why guys under Nick Saban go on to do certain things, and they do things they think in their mind, well, what would Saban do here? Well, what would Jim Schwartz do in this situation? Right. So that would be the similarity, I think, to the point you're making there.
Did Undlin work under Schwartz in Philly?
No, I think he just missed him.
Oh, okay.
I'm not positive on that, though.
But now all of these guys, I assume, are going to use the same style or similar style of defense.
And Monken came out and said that.
Yeah,
again, that's an unknown. Yeah, right. Like,
but you'd have to.
It makes a lot of sense.
They did cross over for 1 year in Philly.
1 year, okay.
Oh, they did. Okay. All right, it's going to be interesting. Based on what you say, and obviously you have a great feel for a locker room, and you've been in a million locker rooms. Like it seems to me the easier transition, because a lot of those players are not happy probably, is to stay within and just promote. And probably Tarver, because he's been a DC before, might make the most sense.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to see some titles get shifted either way. Okay. Some money get bumped up, and this guy comes in, and is the defensive coordinator, but this guy gets a bump up, an additional title.
Okay, So they're going to keep some of
it. But again, anybody can do that. It's making it work in the thick of the season when things don't go right. And when you do have to deal with personalities and dynamics of things. So.
I know it's not a big deal. I mean, it's the running backs coach, but they decided to keep one coach from the old staff. What do you make of that? Anything?
I mean, Deuce Staley's a respected guy in this league. Has been, a lot of people know him.
Yeah.
And, you got two good young running backs who you've invested in.
Yeah.
So
I think he did. I don't know how much credit he gets, but like Dylan Sampson early in the season looked completely out of it, and then he played better as the year went along.
I was unsurprised by that.
Yeah.
I really was. Especially overall, though, it's going to be a young staff. And Deuce Staley, we remember him as a player, but he's not young anymore.
No,
right?
He's not.
So, you're bringing in a offensive coordinator who's never done this in his low 30s. You're bringing in a pass game coordinator.
We used to bring him on the show when he was the analyst for the Saints.
Yeah,
that's true. To bring him on before he was coaching.
Can we get Deuce on?
We could try.
We like Deuce.
Zach, what do you know about Brian Storer, who's the new special teams coordinator for the Browns?
Yeah, not a lot. He was raised, right? Rich Bisaccia is one of the big names in special teams coaching. I thought it made sense, Mike. It's not something I gave a lot of thought to, but I thought, given his lineage in Green Bay, that's something that made sense. And you've coached special teams in cold weather, and you've coached them in big games. And so he's ready. He's a guy that's ready for a promotion here.
I mean, let's face it. A lot of special teams has to do with the depth of your roster.
It does. You got the little details you got to be good at.
Sure.
That's what it is. And they weren't last year, but a lot of it was.
Right. But part of the reason the Browns are continuously bad in special teams is because they don't have good depth on their roster. Yeah. That's a part of it, certainly.
The fact that they have not had a returner in a decade that's even competent.
Well, even when they've tried, the guys have gotten hurt.
Well, right. Well, last year they brought in a 32-year-old kick returner for this team, and then he never even made it to the season. Yeah. And it was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Can we bring back, remember the homeless guy who was at training camp? What was that guy's name? Remember that guy? He had a punt return in the
Sheehy Giuseppe?
Yeah,
David Sheehy
Giuseppe. He was a big story that training
return
camp.
In the preseason game, and the whole team mobbed him.
I know, that was funny.
He lied to get into the tryout?
Yeah.
God, what a story
it's
that
was.
was.
It's like a scene from Major League.
It was a wild story.
Yeah.
Wild story.